Have you ever wondered how an entire civilization can change its gods seemingly overnight? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into a fascinating model that helps explain some of the biggest religious shakeups in all of human history. All right, let's kick things off with a bit of a historical puzzle, a pattern that you see pop up again and again and again across different cultures and centuries. So picture this. Han Dynasty China. We're talking about its final chaotic years. You've got civil war, total unrest, just a time of deep, deep uncertainty for absolutely everyone. Or how about this one? The world right after Alexander the Great. Everything people thought they knew, the old Greek city-states, was just collapsing. A massive new empire was changing the rules of the game. And let's add one more to the mix, the Arabian Peninsula, just before the rise of Islam. It's a place just boiling over with social and political conflict, especially in key cities like Medina. So you've got China, Greece, Arabia, completely different places, different times. What in the world could they possibly have in common? Well, they all share one huge secret. Each one went through a massive religious upheaval. The very foundations of their beliefs were transformed. So, what's going on here? Let's find out. To figure this out, we're going to lean on the source material for this explainer. It gives us a really powerful framework for understanding not just that these changes happened, but the how and the why. It's kind of like getting a look under the hood at the engine that drives these profound shifts in belief. Okay, so here it is. The key to this whole puzzle, according to our source material, is understanding that there are basically two different kinds of religion. And this one idea, it really unlocks everything. All right, let's break this down. On one side, you have what are called world-accepting religions. Think of these as the here and now faiths. They're all about making this life work. Praying for a good harvest, protecting the community, keeping the universe in balance. The afterlife? Kind of fuzzy, not really the point. But then you have world-rejecting religions, and these are a whole different ballgame. They look at this world and see it as temporary, flawed, something you need to escape. The real goal, the whole point, is salvation. And the afterlife is everything. It's the glorious main event. And this is where it gets really good. The source material basically zeroes in on this core tension. Is the point of religion to create harmony in this world, or is it all about salvation in the next one? That single question, that's the key. It's what unlocks that whole historical pattern we started with. So, what could possibly be powerful enough to make an entire society flip from one way of believing to another? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple: crisis. Now, the author uses a specific term for this: anomic social conditions. It sounds a bit academic, but all it really means is that moment when society just breaks. The old rulebook gets thrown out the window. Think about it. War, your government collapsing, getting conquered. Everything you once thought was stable and certain is just gone. And what's fascinating is that this process follows this really clear, predictable pattern. You start with a stable society, and its religion works just fine for that stability. Then, crisis hits. Society starts to fall apart, and people are terrified. And suddenly, those old gods who were great for bringing rain, they don't seem to have any answers for all this suffering. And that creates a huge spiritual vacuum, just waiting to be filled. And once you see this pattern, you start to see it everywhere. The chaos after Alexander the Great's death, boom, it opens the door for these personal salvation cults to thrive. The turmoil in the late Han Dynasty, bam, it creates a perfect opening for Buddhism's message about escaping worldly suffering. And all that strife in pre-Islamic Arabia, it set the stage perfectly for a new, unifying message to take root. So, we've got the crisis. We've got the spiritual void. But why were these new religions the answer? When everything was falling apart, what exactly did they offer that the old faiths couldn't? Well, think about it. If your house is on fire, you're not really worried about mowing the lawn, right? It's the same idea. When your entire world is crumbling, a religion focused on this life just doesn't make sense anymore. You need a different kind of hope. And these new faiths delivered. They shifted the focus from the tribe or the city to the individual soul. They promised a just, glorious afterlife, which gave meaning to all the suffering on earth. And they created new communities when the old ones were gone. The Hellenistic mystery cults are a perfect example. As that old city-state identity faded, people felt totally lost, uprooted. So along come these cults dedicated to gods like Isis and Mithras, and they offer a personal connection to the divine. And, this is the big one, a promise of personal salvation. And the source text really shows how these cults were a direct answer to the anxiety of the time. This core idea of a dying and rising God, I mean, can you imagine a more powerful symbol for people whose world felt like it was ending? It was a direct promise that even out of all this death and decay, a new eternal life was possible for them. So the crucial point is really captured in this quote from the historian Arnold Toynbee. He basically said that this experience of being uprooted, of losing your home, of becoming a refugee, that profound suffering is the fertile ground, the very soil from which these huge, world-transforming religions grow. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, this model is more than just an explanation of the past. It's an analytical tool. It's a lens for looking at history.
And what does that lens show us? It reveals this consistent pattern in human behavior. When our world breaks down, when our social structures and old certainties fail us, we don't just give up. We often look for meaning in a world beyond our own. The focus shifts from simply accepting this life to trying to transcend it.
This whole framework, it really just sets the stage for a new question, a brand new historical collision. And that's actually the central topic of the book this analysis is drawn from. It asks us to think about what happens when these two fundamentally different ways of seeing the universe come into direct contact. What happens when a world-rejecting religion meets a culture of world-accepting warrior gods? Well, the answer to that question reshaped the world.